What if I told you the man who spent 2 decades screaming about Ferraris is now quietly running one of the most calculated property and business portfolios in Britain, wrapped inside a farm that turned just £144 profit in year 1? And that's barely scratching the surface of what's actually going on at Diddley Squat. Here's everything the headlines missed. Back in 2008, while the rest of the country was watching the financial system collapse, Jeremy Clarkson was writing a £6 million check for 1,000 acres of Cotswolds farmland. The man famous for destroying supercars on television was suddenly a landowner. His friends thought he'd completely lost the plot, but Clarkson had spotted something most people hadn't. British land is arguably the safest store of wealth in the country, and when you die, agricultural property relief means the taxman walks away empty-handed. That farm he paid £6 million for is now estimated to be worth £12.5 million. He's doubled his money purely by owning it, before a single product was ever sold. While celebrity friends were splashing cash on boats and watching it evaporate, Clarkson was slowly stacking an appreciating asset nobody could touch. Now here's the part that makes you rethink everything. Everyone mocked that £144 first-year profit. What a gloriously expensive hobby, the press said. But they were looking at completely the wrong number. Amazon reportedly pays Clarkson somewhere between £10 and £12 million per year for the Grand Tour alone, and Clarkson's farm has become Prime Video's most watched UK original. The farm barely breaks even. The television show about the farm breaking even is worth an absolute fortune. Every snapped axle, every planning refusal, every blazing row with Kaleb, it's all content that earns millions. The farm was never the product. The farm is the set, and Amazon is covering the entire production budget. Nobody engineered this, not even Clarkson himself. In year 1, he grew 40 tons of potatoes and had absolutely nobody to sell them to. Supermarkets wouldn't entertain such a small operation, so he threw up a wooden shed in a field and started flogging vegetables. That ramshackle little structure has since transformed into one of the most talked about retail destinations in Britain. Within a year, the business grew from £44,000 in assets to £1.34 million. Visitor numbers got so out of hand that police were managing 3-mile queues on country lanes. People were waiting hours to purchase what Clarkson brilliantly branded cow juice and bee juice, his tongue-in-cheek labels for milk and honey. A desperate attempt to shift surplus potatoes became a full-blown destination with a loyal customer base. Every season, Clarkson is at war with the local planning authority, and it couldn't be more perfectly designed for television even if someone had scripted it. West Oxfordshire District Council refused permission for a car park. They shut down his restaurant. They told him he couldn't lay a farm track without prior approval. Audiences were furious watching it unfold. But here's what nobody noticed. Clarkson later revealed that a farming contact had suggested pursuing planning permission specifically because the conflict would make compelling viewing. Every rejection, every enforcement notice, every moment of apparent defeat was simultaneously free publicity worth millions. The council believed they were defending the Cotswolds. Clarkson was banking content and playing the underdog to perfection. Losing has never been so profitable. This one barely disguises itself as farming anymore. In Series 2, Clarkson grew some barley and decided to turn it into lager. Hawkstone launched with his face on the label and immediately became Amazon's top-selling beer. By March 2025, Hawkstone had posted £21.3 million in sales, nearly tripling the previous year's £7.8 million, 134% annual growth, placing it as the 23rd fastest-growing private company in Britain. The brewery now employs 53 people and supplies over 2,000 pubs nationally, alongside Waitrose, Morrison's, and Sainsbury's. Clarkson commissioned an advert featuring farmers singing something spectacularly profane that got banned almost immediately, and racked up over 1 million online views in the process. The ban was almost certainly the best marketing outcome imaginable. The farm grows some barley, the brewery prints the money. Here's where it becomes genuinely clever. Clarkson put £1 million into buying and renovating the Farmer's Dog pub near the farm. Every ingredient on the menu is sourced from British producers. Black pepper from Cornwall rather than India. British beef rather than cheaper imports. Prices reflect that accordingly. The pub employs 146 people, and, by Clarkson's own admission, is brilliant at converting £100 into about £94. The only thing keeping it financially afloat is selling Hawkstone lager at the bar, where he holds every penny of margin. But profit from food was never the point. The pub creates a second filming location, champions British agriculture in a very visible way, and serves as a vehicle for shifting enormous quantities of his own beer to a captive audience, losing money on the kitchen while winning it at the bar. Loss leading executed with genuine flair. Meet Britain's most unlikely farming millionaire. Kaleb Cooper was already working at Diddley Squat when Clarkson bought the place. He's 26 years old, holds assets reportedly worth £960,000, including £400,000 in cash, and went from earning 50 pence an hour tending his own livestock to building a personal brand that includes a sellout touring show called The World According to Kaleb. But the real insight here is Clarkson's. He understood that without Kaleb, the genuine knowledge, the dry wit, the absolute refusal to be starstruck, the show stops working. Kaleb is the soul of it, and he's become wealthy doing nothing other than being exactly who he always was, a proper Cotswolds farmer who thinks London is a waste of everyone's time. Clarkson's most brazen move involved a barn he converted into a restaurant without proper planning consent. He claimed a loophole, opened it, ran it for exactly a month, then received an enforcement notice and was forced to close. The planning inspector confirmed it had been unlawful. A total disaster on paper, except that entire saga drove the narrative arc of Series 2, generated millions of views, and kept audiences hooked across the whole season. The restaurant lost money for 30 days. The television drama built around that failure earned millions over years. Whether it was calculated or not, the outcome was identical. The council placed a condition on the farm shop that looked designed to strangle it. Everything sold had to be sourced within 16 miles of Diddley Squat. No imported goods, no London suppliers, nothing from outside that radius. Most operators would have walked away. Clarkson built a farmers' cooperative instead, giving local producers access to thousands of paying customers they'd never previously been able to reach, while taking a modest cut of each sale. His partner Lisa Hogan said the restriction had actually worked in their favor because it pushed them to find brilliant local suppliers they'd never have discovered otherwise. What the council intended as a limitation became a unique selling point and a genuine support mechanism for local agriculture. Clarkson has written about this publicly and without much attempt to conceal it. Agricultural property relief means farmland passes to heirs completely free of inheritance tax. For someone with a reported £55 million fortune, that's a staggering sum protected from HMRC. Purchase a £6 million farm, watch it appreciate to £12.5 million, and your children inherit every penny without a deduction. Simultaneously, the farm generates television content, hosts a retail operation, underpins a brewery, and provides the physical base for everything else. It's a tax-efficient, appreciating asset that doubles as a production facility for a globally watched streaming series. That's not farming. That's financial architecture with a tractor parked out front. When Series 1 landed on Amazon, the surge of visitors to Diddley Squat Farm Shop was so extreme that police were deployed to manage the resulting traffic jams, stretching 3 miles in both directions. Residents in Chadlington were understandably furious. Clarkson applied for a car park. The council refused, citing the area of outstanding natural beauty. Visitors kept abandoning their cars on country lanes. But what looked like a logistical headache was actually irrefutable evidence that Clarkson had created something people desperately wanted to experience. By Series 3, he won an appeal and secured temporary planning permission for a proper car park. The inspector acknowledged the farm shop had become a victim of its own success. Those traffic jams weren't a crisis. They were the most powerful proof of demand any farm shop in British history has ever accidentally produced. Where a conventional farmer sees catastrophe, Clarkson sees a script. Potatoes that rotted before reaching market. Wheat that failed brewing specifications. Oilseed rape destroyed by pigeons. Barley waterlogged beyond recovery. Trout eaten by otters and herons. Each of these events would have financially broken a normal farming operation. Every single one became a television episode, earning millions from Amazon. The correlation runs backwards. The worse the farming performs, the more compelling the content becomes. He's stumbled upon something no other farmer in Britain has managed to replicate. Agricultural failure is profitable if you're capturing it on camera. And that's precisely why nobody else can copy the model, regardless of how hard they try. When Clarkson needed to scale a brewery, Heineken stepped in to back distribution across 2,000 pubs. When he wanted a pub, a prime Cotswolds location materialized for under £1 million. When the farm shop became overwhelmed, national newspapers covered it and amplified the demand further. Hawkstone's net worth climbed from £432,000 to over £3 million in a single year, a 601% increase, driven largely by the fact that Clarkson's face is on the label. 2 decades of television fame have been converted into commercial infrastructure that would have taken an ordinary business owner generations to build. The gap between Diddley Squat and every other farm in Britain isn't agricultural expertise. It's celebrity capital deployed with precision. Clarkson's farm became the most watched Prime Video original series in the United Kingdom. Chinese audiences on Douban rated it 9.6 out of 10. Every viewing hour, every completion rate, every algorithmic signal feeds back into Amazon's recommendation engine and pushes the show in front of new audiences. Those audiences then purchase Hawkstone on Amazon, where it became the platform's top-selling beer. They buy his books. They subscribe to Prime to catch the next series. Amazon isn't paying Clarkson millions out of generosity. They're paying him because he's an integrated content and commerce engine that generates subscriptions, product revenue, and global viewing figures that justify the investment many times over. The farm loses money. The show is a profit center, and Amazon controls the supply chain connecting both. After 2 series of council battles, Clarkson finally received an email from the planning inspector granting permission for mixed-use development covering agriculture, cafe, restaurant, farm shop, parking, and toilet facilities. He was filmed crying when he read it, but here's the detail worth paying attention to. The permission runs for 3 years, meaning he'll have to reapply in 2026, which means more hearings, more drama, more content for future series. Winning didn't conclude the story, it simply launched the next chapter. The planning system isn't an obstacle to Clarkson's television career. It's the mechanism that generates new narrative tension every single season. The farmer's dog serves exclusively British produce, no Heinz ketchup, no Coca-Cola, black pepper sourced from Cornwall at 10 times the cost of imported. Most hospitality operators would call this commercial madness. Clarkson has turned it into the pub's entire identity and a living, breathing platform for British agriculture. Every dish carries a story. Every ingredient supports a UK producer. It makes the operation slower, more expensive, and considerably harder to run. It also makes it entirely unlike any other pub in Britain, and difference drives footfall. People don't queue for hours to visit a standard country pub. They queue to visit the one that's making a principled stand for British farming, even if that stand is costing its owner considerably. The Grand Tour's traveling tent now sits permanently on the grounds of the farmer's dog. Inside, Clarkson has built a butcher's shop called Hops and Chops, an outdoor kitchen branded The Farmer's Puppy, and another Diddley Squat merchandise outlet. It's effectively a shopping complex dressed up as a pub attraction. Customers who can't secure a table inside still have plenty of ways to spend money outside, and because the structure is a marquee rather than a permanent building, different planning restrictions apply, effectively sidestepping some of the regulations that would accompany a brick-built extension. A piece of motoring television history repurposed as a retail operation with a more favorable regulatory footprint. This may be his most enduring achievement, and it happened entirely by accident. Agricultural experts have said Clarkson did more for public understanding of farming in one series than 3 decades of Countryfile managed. Urban viewers who had never once considered where their food came from suddenly understood crop rotation, subsidy structures, planning law, and the economic pressures facing modern British agriculture. The British Farming Awards recognized him for raising public awareness in a way no institution had previously achieved. When Clarkson writes columns calling for VAT reform or reduced business rates on rural enterprises, millions of viewers now grasp exactly why it matters. He's running a public education program that also happens to be extraordinarily profitable. Clarkson recently announced he's finished launching new businesses. Done. No more ventures. But consider what he already holds. A 1,000-acre farm valued at £12.5 million, a shop turning over £1.34 million, a brewery posting $21.3 million in annual sales, a pub employing 146 people, a globally watched television series, and product lines spanning lager, cider, gin, and honey. In 2026, Diddley Squat will host a major agricultural trade event expected to draw up to 30,000 professional farmers. He doesn't need new businesses, because the ones already running are compounding quietly on their own. 20 years ago, Clarkson was the man bellowing about Aston Martins. Today, he's become one of the most prominent and unlikely voices for British agriculture, rural enterprise, and the survival of small-scale farming. He's created employment for more than 200 people. He's given local suppliers a route to market they'd never had. He's generated enormous wealth, while simultaneously making millions of people care about an industry they'd previously ignored entirely. The farm that produced 144 pounds profit in its opening year now sits at the center of a multi-million-pound operation spanning television, brewing, retail, hospitality, and property. Every element of it has been built on the back of agricultural failure that would have finished off any conventional farmer. That's not farming. That's one of the most sophisticated business ecosystems in modern Britain, concealed behind a bloke in a muddy wax jacket arguing with a planning officer about a car park. That's how you take 1,000 acres, 144 pounds in profit, and turn it into an empire that reaches across brewing, television, retail, and property, all while insisting you haven't got the first clue what you're doing. Hit subscribe and stay tuned for our next deep dive into a British business story that'll genuinely leave you speechless.